Hey, I'm Pops, and welcome to What's Your Story. I know it's a lot different. There's not a guest here, right? Not the white room with all the words, but listen, uh, scheduling stuff happens, and here we are, and we're going to just have sort of a transparent conversation about me and something that I spend time thinking about here, and it's part of my 2023 plan, if you will. Like people talk about New Year's resolutions and that kind of thing. And the one word for me my one word would be cultivate. It's something my pastor had said. One of our early sermons in January used the term cultivate. And where I kind of grabbed a hold of that was, and where I want to share with you was this concept of virtue, right? The concept of virtue meaning opposite things like the seven deadly sins. Like, so when I think about virtue, I think about like what is a virtue, right? That was part of it. Like what is the best way to cultivate virtue, cultivate certain positive virtues versus negative ones, right? And a virtue, is basically the expression of our moral compass because it can be positive or negative. It can be bad or good or evil or benevolent. And people are familiar with the seven deadly sins, right? It's common in mythology. It's very common in whether it be religion or a movie like Seven. People pretty much can list most of the seven deadly sins, but there is a mirror to that of positive things, and I want to talk about those things and maybe ask you to think about like how do you cultivate doing the positive things because I don't want anyone to think that I'm trying to judge anybody else or that I don't have problems in each one of these categories because I do. I don't think it's wrong to have a fleeting thought or emotion, but it's about what do you do with that fleeting thought or emotions. For example, the first topic is the easiest one to get to, and that'd probably be lust, right? It's one thing to look and you see someone that's, a attractive person of the opposite sex. I see a woman that's attractive. That there's an innate thought or emotion that can pop into someone's head. Well, what do you do with that thought? Are you reveling on it? You know, uh, I heard someone say something. Seeing the pretty girl is one thing, but driving around the block to see her again is another. And I think that's where lust comes into play, right? What are you fantasizing about? What are you thinking about? And I think we live in a society that has cultivated the negative side of this. It's only about pornography, uh, objectification of humans. It's not just women; it's humans. Everything is a sex is treated as like a transactional thing. It's not the relational. It's not the intimacy and chastity and purity are sort of like lost things that so many people are like, well, you just can't achieve it. You you can't stay that way, so therefore we shouldn't strive for that type of goal or think of that virtue. And I think that's completely erroneous and false. That even in the mistakes of our past, you can have a clean slate, a clean start, a clean break to move forward, right? I'm not going to lie about, being divorced, making tons of mistakes. I was really driven by that sin most of my life, and still struggle at times. There's times I would lie to you if I didn't say I make a very concerted effort to try to avoid nudity and sexual content because I don't want any more of that into my head. I don't need any more of that in my subconscious. And it's not to make me holier than thou or anything like that. I'm just trying to cultivate. I'm trying to maintain a certain attitude and mindset, right? Another one that I have, I really struggle with, and may surprise some of you, and that would be greed. And greed and envy to me kind of go hand in hand for me personally. I know they can be different. For me, they really do because I don't think I have mentally thought about it this way. But the end result is that I've been financially irresponsible and I've made poor decisions, been bankrupt before, went through the housing market and went through a complete disaster. Every bad decision can bubble up and catch you. And I try to counteract that with the appropriate virtue would be generosity and selflessness, kindness, those kinds of things. So when it comes to greed and envy, it's I want what they have, I want what they've got. And for me, it's it was not always conscious. I wasn't consciously greedy or envious or those kinds of things. It was just that was just the nature of how I was living. Material objects were the thing I wanted. I wanted to have something. I wanted to hold something. I was getting away financially from what my responsibilities were, right? And I've made those decisions. And I'm lucky that someone has stuck by me despite those failures, those moral failures that I've had, my irresponsibilities in my past, which still haunt me, to be honest. And you just kind of have to understand that there are going to be peaks and valleys where you're going to succeed and fail. And you want to wrap your arms around successes and try to find ways to build on that, learn from that. But you can't live in the past and the failure. The failures, sadly, especially with finances and the way our system works, a lot of that stuff does kind of hang with you, right? You kind of have to pay the price of your mistakes differently than you do others, right? And you have to sort of like surrender yourself in order to become less greedy, right? You have to surrender the stuff that you want to become selfless and generous and kind to others, right? Don't let yourself get caught up with spite, jealousy, those kinds of things. I don't know. I don't think I have spent a lot of time like consciously that way because I don't think I look at anyone and go, I wish I had their car or boat, life, money, whatever. I do think though it manifests for me through regrets. I wish I hadn't done this, but I'm not regretting it always because of the right reason. I'm regretting it because if I hadn't made this mistake, I could have this thing or I could have this place or this opportunity. And I even say that a lot. I say that on my YouTube channel. I say if I hadn't done this, and it's probably not the appropriate way of looking at things because I shouldn't live in that regret. I did what I did. I need to learn from that, pull out the positives to move forward. Focus on the ways that I can be kind or generous moving forward and not living in something that I can't control or change. And I don't know if you guys are going through any of that. If you have gone through that, feel free to put comments and let me know. I try to follow everything in the live chat when it premieres because it's the best way to put this out there front and center first thing Sunday morning, but also try to have some sort of feedback and interaction loop with you guys to understand what you want to talk about, questions, comments, that kind of things. And I love it. I think that's probably my favorite part is just interaction. So we talked about some different kinds of virtues, lust and greed and envy. Um, I would say anger is one. I feel, and I have to be honest, anger and meekness, or patience are. It's one that I have to be honest. I had like I always joked about my dad's anger or rage, and It's not bragging in a positive way. It's almost like bemoaning that generational. It's called a generational curse in our faith in the Bible, but it because you are going to emulate. Sometimes it's how you were raised, and you see it played out, and you emulate it that way. Sometimes there's some genetics involved, but reality is this: I was never taught or helped or encouraged or discouraged about how to manage all of that in healthy ways. It was just sort of a free for all. So I had sort of a very much like what is happening to me in the moment is how I would respond. If it was positive, I'd be positive. If it was negative, I'd be negative. And reality is anger leads to, um, we like Yoda, right? Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering. Uh, but it's the stuff that you can't take back for me. It's like I say things that would hurt someone, or I would say things that would injure someone. And usually, the closest someone is to you, the more at risk they are of being in the splash zone of your anger outburst, your angry outburst, right? And for me, I tend to actually make people around me more upset now because I have really uh, just don't let stuff bother me, right? I have no problem taking a slower route and taking longer. I'd rather leave early and still get there on time than get caught up in road rage, get caught up in crazy drivers and that kind of stuff. I find all of that trivial stuff not worth my emotional credit. I just don't. I don't want to. And I would want you to try to say, listen, if you're struggling with anger issues and whatever, it's like, well, what can you do to model a lifestyle and footsteps that don't put you at risk of getting so angry? So, for instance, um, somebody I care about very much, they don't like to shop at all. And they were telling a story. They were sharing a story about going to a Walmart. I know, Walmart. Why would you even bother? And they were frustrated because if you've gone to Walmart, I saw this before I stopped going there, but I saw they took out all the registers to this one end of the store, and it was all now self checkout. So you have the elimination of like 15 registers, and it's like just one big pit of self checkout stuff. And they're like, this is a person that has no interest in doing self checkout. That's just not who they are. So I thought to myself, when we were talking about this, I'm like, well, let me ask, why did you even go there? Like, don't go. Don't put yourself in a situation that's just going to tick you off. You know, that's the lay of the land, right? These giant stores, poor customer service, a poor checkout experience. No one's going to help you. You know, you have to kind of flag people down there to even check out, let alone you need help finding someone like that. Like, that's just not a good environment and arena to put yourself in. Same thing like with the road rage. Like, okay, if you know you have an issue in traffic, don't be late. Don't don't always put yourself right up against that wire. Don't not know where you're going. You know, research your directions, research your turns or landmarks or whatever you have to do so you set yourself up to succeed and not be so frustrated you end up going into anger and wrath. Because wrath is when you act out on that anger. Anger, the emotion, is the normal part. You're going to get angry at something, right? So the deadly sin is not anger. The deadly sin is wrath. What did you say? How did you say it? Which finger did you use? You guys know what I'm talking about, right? We've all been there, right? And it was one of the ones that I really, really worked on quickly. And this year, it's been an easier thing to kind of, again, cultivate things that are positive rather than negative. So we talk about some of the different ones. And I don't know, is this resonating with you guys? Do you think of things in this way, or am I speaking just kind of like weird foreign language to you? Because to me, cultivate meant I want to work at something, right? It's like cultivating like a harvest, cultivating land to grow crops. I want to work at something. And you're going to cultivate, a certain positive or negative direction that you want to go to, right? Gluttony, right? Eating and drinking. Wish I could tell you I had good self control when it comes to this. I do not. I do not. Um, I can do well when it comes to like sobriety. Like I've been able to give up all of those type of vices. I haven't had alcohol in years. I've never had an addiction issue in that arena. I had fear of it, so therefore I had always backed away from it. As far as all the other stuff goes, and for me, the issue has been food, sweets, um, stress eating some, but more just like laziness. Like it's like a convenience of routine of things that I want to have, and trying to exhibit more self control is just really really hard. But I also know that I don't do a good job of trying to set myself up to succeed sometimes. Let's say I have a sweet craving, but I haven't I need to predict that that's going to come, so I have a plan of when that sweet craving comes. This is what I'm going to have. I've got a certain type of carb smart ice cream by Breyers that I like. Right? We have a no sugar syrup I can use. I use fruit like bananas. I love this stuff. This is a great alternative for me. My wife makes this amazing like keto brownie thing. A little bit of that ice cream with her brownie. These are the great solutions. But when I'm away at work and I'm on my own, I don't have a freezer of ice cream with, Mrs. Pop's treats, and I don't have all of that already set up. So I tend to drift and make mistakes and end up not doing well, not being disciplined, not staying focused. And hence the reason I stay a pretty big lumbering guy. And it's something that I'm working on. So we talked about lust, greed, gluttony, wrath, envy. Let's talk about pride and humility. Now, this is a tricky one because it is the definition of pride for you that is the hardest one, because that's probably the one for me that's, it's one of those, when I hold the mirror up, can I be honest about how we see ourselves, right? The one thing for me, as I had to learn, was can I and do I want to believe that I am under the authority of a creator? Like that was the first step for me. Like, can I submit myself that there could be a God? And I had ran from God for so long because I had gone to church. I'd become very faithful when I was young. Then I slid away. I come back, away, back and forth, back and forth. So later in life, when this was the first step for me, was about, can you submit yourself that there could be something bigger than us? And then more than that, it's about, can you set aside your pride to humble yourself to serve and to be under someone else, right? That it's not about me. And even if you're not a faithful person, you're not into religion, you don't believe, maybe you're an atheist, maybe you're a militant atheist. I don't care. The question is, for me, it really become down to, do people want to be around a prideful person, a braggart, if you will, someone who's boasting, those kinds of things? Or do you want to be someone who's trying to be humble? Now, humility's hard, right? The one thing I have learned, and it was pretty big for me, because it's almost prideful when this will happen. Someone will pay you a compliment. Oh, I love this, whatever, and you're like, oh no, come on now, blah 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 blah. Don't be that way. Sometimes it's okay for us to just say thank you, and I've learned that, and I realized that that's okay to say, and by saying that, that doesn't make me prideful. I can just say thank you, and it almost like lets me out of the trick of being like, oh no. It's like, well, I am being prideful then. I'm almost like trying to one up the compliment, and instead just rather try to stay humble. Right. The last one I think that I wanted to get to was sloth, because with sloth, what really should be translated to is just laziness, right? It's just sloth. It's just lazy in different aspects, whether it be our physical, which goes back to my weight, whether it be spiritual, not doing the things we know we're supposed to be doing, um, developing our talents and gifts, those kinds of things. Sloth versus like diligence and perseverance. And this is one that I really dug into quickly, because this was part of my plan for the YouTube content, was that I wasn't going to be outworked for the time that I could devote. I was going to work my butt off the best I could, meaning I have to maintain my health. Doesn't do me any good if I work myself sick, mentally or physically. That I would not obsess over certain things, which for me was the quality issue, like over edited, and just this constant over part of it all. but I wasn't going to be lazy about it. It was easy for me, like early 22 and then probably before 22. It was easy for me to get off work and be too tired, sit around and do nothing. I had nothing to show for those hours. I have no videos discussing what I watched. I have no uh, articles that I wrote about something that I reviewed or read. I may have ultimately wrote a review or whatever, but I wasted 3 nights or whatever instead of diligently getting to it, getting the job done, get in, get out. So why do I go through all this with you guys? Again, I'm not trying to lecture. There's a phrase, or I don't know what to call it, about if you feel like I'm pointing one finger at you, know that I'm pointing 3 fingers back at me. I'm not trying to lecture anybody. I'm just trying to talk about what happens in my head, my life, me personally. That this pastor had made this comment about cultivating. And it's more like, you're going to move forward. You can start to push and steer towards something positive or negative, or you can just let it be a free for all and let it go, which in most cases will drift towards the easier path, which will be more negative. Not saying you're a negative person, not saying you're a bad person, evil person, not trying to send anybody to hell or anything like that. I'm just saying this was my mindset. As I took this concept and how I tweaked it and made it work for me. At least I'm trying to make it work for me. And then as things like scheduling and things like that have happened, I have a week where I don't have a guest for Watch Your Story. So I said, well, I'm going to sit down and I'm just going to open the book and just start talking to everyone about what I do, what I've been working on, how I've been trying to work on my moral compass, how that manifests itself. Like I said, some things are kind of a work in progress that date back years, right? Something that I have already I don't want to say, I don't know that I want to ever say I conquered something, right? Like lust, even, because there's times where you struggle or something has happened and you're like, now you're thinking about it. I don't want to think about that, right? But I want to try to work in a way that navigates and pushes me towards the positive things, right? Purity, um, selflessness, doing good things, staying, trying to work on my self control and patience, my humility, trying to be more grateful for things that I already have, right? And then being diligent, persevering, and working hard. How does that work? A part of it is trying to figure out where the dead wood is, where the problems were, so I can try to, if I can't, if I can't cut it out completely, which I did in some cases. Like I said, I don't drink. I don't go down. I got to be honest. I don't even go down the alcohol aisles in grocery stores. My wife jokes all the time about one of the stores. I think they moved the bread. So I actually have to, I would go down the adjacent aisle like a loop. I'd go down the adjacent aisle, go like this, and then come around this way, grab the bread and go back like that instead of walking down the one aisle. So I would not even see all of the booze. Is that ridiculous and hyperbolic? Yeah, it is. It is. But you know what? That worked for me. And I've kicked that habit. I've kicked that addiction, if you will. I don't think I ever was really addicted per se, but it was something I did. And it's in my family. Addiction was in my family. It's been very destructive. It's led to abuse and assault in my family. And I don't want to be a part of any of that. So that was an easier one for me. Whereas uh, being humble and doing good works, and I have a hard time when people, will bring up things that have happened, or maybe I've sent somebody something that's happened recently in a stream this week where someone said thank you, or they're pointing out positive things that I had done or whatever that they got. Well, okay. Sometimes I just say you're welcome. Thank you. You're welcome, because I don't want to spin my wheels there. But I'm happy that it is fruit of something that I'm trying to work on. That's what I want to work towards, is that level of selflessness. That's what I want to do. I'd rather give that back. I'd rather give my stuff, this material stuff. I have tons of material stuff. I'd rather give it to other people who can find joy and happiness in it, not give it to someone to just be another collectible in their long box of stuff, but rather someone who could say, um, I'm teaching my kid how to read out of this comic book. Man, this reminded me of when I was a kid. Those kinds of things, right? I also know that all of this, the YouTubing stuff and things like that, is also very insignificant. This is all first world stuff. I have to do better in my own house. I got to do better with my relationship with Mrs. Pops and my kids, her mom and my dad, people that I interact with physically, like coworkers and people in public. Like we have just lost all of these virtues. Like, I don't know, man. I don't have a problem opening a door for somebody and just waiting for them to come and go. You ever open the door for someone and then there's like now another person coming and another person coming and another person coming, and your brain starts to short circuit where you're like, okay, come on, I got to go. At some point, I just had to decide, listen, if I open that door, I'm going to be in it to win it. I don't know how long I'm going to stand here, 30 seconds, a minute, whatever. And I put a smile on my face. I just try to be nice to people. Have a great day. Hope you're doing well. Just be polite. And it's like one moment after another and trying to string some of those together about opportunities. Can I do something here? Can I do something there? And there's still a ton of limitations that you're going to have even when you're trying to do these things, because you're going to fail. You're going to have bad days, you know, bad days. You just are, especially whenever, like for me, like the anger thing, trying not to be wrath is like when you're wronged, like someone's cheated you, had a company that basically had lied to us and we're like in a breach of contract, and now we have to like look at like a legal situation with this circumstance. It's expensive, it's a hassle, I don't know what I'm doing, which is even more frustrating because Mrs. Pops is looking at me for help or like and guidance and leadership, and I'm like, I feel like I'm going to let her down. But at the same time, you can't just hang on the failures and the negativity. You have to figure out like, okay, well, I got to stay on target. Stay on target is cultivate. Stay on target is, how do I win at these things? Well, I'm not sure you ever win, but you can continue to move towards like minor victories. I can stack up minor victories. I can stack up uh, moments where I didn't lash out. I got angry. I bit my tongue, right? There's moments where I was able to give someone something, maybe a physical object, and it brought them happiness or joy. Okay. There are moments where I can serve someone else, just be nice, be kind. Like I said, it can be something simple like holding a door. And I got to be honest, just being nice to people. There's so few people who seem like they want to be nice. It has to be rewarding to run into people who are, especially when you have to work with the public. I don't know about you guys, but I felt like I kept thinking about like what could I talk about? What could I touch on? And I felt like this is kind of like the backbone of where we are because we're so predisposed to what's easy. And the easy thing are all of those negative ones. The easy thing is all of those bad things, in my opinion. I'd love to hear from you guys. I don't know how you approach like self improvement, if that's a good word for it, or try to figure out how to. I use buzzwords I've picked up like level up. How do I level up at each one of these things? Like, how do I get a little better? How do I get a little better at this, a little better at that? This is why the cursing thing has become a big deal for me because it's like, well, if I can cut out the cursing, it's part of me using language differently. It's part of me using my voice differently. It better reflects who I want to be and the journey that I'm on. Like I've left behind, I want to say filth, but the filthy language, the filthy, because it came it came in a very close knit to filthy thoughts and imagery and things like that. And again, I'm really sorry. I'm not trying to judge anybody else. I'm just trying to speak about me. And I felt like if I could work at that, because I do fail, I wish I could tell you I don't have one, the thoughts, and then B, every now and then I'll drop a curse word. Uh, is the fact that I try to work as a way of moving away from the filth, moving away from the profane and towards something that is at least more pure, not holier than thou, pure or whatever. I'm not, and I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be that. 'Cause that is definitely pride. I don't feel like uh, I hope I'm not an embodiment of pride because I don't think of myself as that way. I just think of myself as another pleb just trying to make my way through this thing called life. Trying, as I say, I try to be blessed. I try to appreciate what I have. I try to bless others. I try to make tomorrow a little bit better than today. Like, what can I do for this, whatever that looks like? Because sometimes you have opportunities that you don't act on. I know I do, and I want to try to minimize that. I don't want to do that. I want to be able to act on opportunities. I want to act and make a positive impact or movement when I have a chance to. And you guys have been great. I can't believe it. How welcoming the arms have been. People have been. It's it's kind of crazy to think about. To be honest, I uh, I don't know what to say other than thank you. It's been awesome, and to know that what your story kind of has translated over this well. So many people talk about it, ask me about it, comes up with conversations. The different guests have just been so gracious with their time because they can share different stories, perspectives, and things like that. And while today is different, 'cause it's just me yammering on, I hope that maybe something nudges you to think about something or whatever. Maybe, and you'll let me know. Let me know what you guys think because I'm a massive work in progress, guys. I'm not going to pretend. Uh, the joke in my house is even though I figured out how to solve a Rubik's cube, it doesn't mean I know how to solve a Rubik's cube. What I mean by that is, even though I went through all this trouble and learned how to solve a Rubik's cube, and I can solve a Rubik's cube, it doesn't mean like I really have figured out some secret of life or anything. And that's kind of how I feel. Like no matter how it seems or how put together it all seems, reality is I'm a mess just like everybody else. It's all about a gradient, a degree, walking someone else's shoes, all those kinds of things come into play. But I hope that this has been remotely positive or interesting for you and you can get something out of it. It may not be quite as long as I normally go, but like I said, it's a little different when you're just yammering on about yourself and some thoughts and emotions that I've been working through, especially since the first of the year. 'Cause I went into the close of the year with a plan for what the channel would do and what I was going to focus on with this part of my life. Then I had like other parts of my life. I had like a structured plan, like the financial part. I kind of had very different kind of plan for that, where I was going to continue to streamline and reduce some material objects, generate some revenue from that to pay off debt and to move towards uh, like an investment, if you will, for this other phase of things that I want to do, like moving, transfer, that kind of thing. And then the spiritual part, or at least this, metaphysical spiritual part, was birthed out of this phrase that this pastor had said, and then I kind of gone down that rabbit's hole and work on how do I be a little bit better at, and then all these different things. So that's my concept on virtue, where I'm at, how I'm trying to work on and towards different things. I'd love your thoughts. Maybe it's books that you'd recommend. Maybe it's different things that you think that we should talk about, guests that we should bring on, things like that. Anything like that. I'm pretty open to at least have that interaction with you guys because that really is what drives me and makes me the most joyful from all of this is that. So with that, again, thanks guys so much for this. I appreciate you guys, being a part of the channel. And if you enjoyed this at all, feel free to leave a comment, like, share, whatever. But more importantly, just leave me a comment. Let me know different thoughts or ideas that you have. I appreciate hearing from you guys so much. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day today. Look forward to talking to you guys soon. Take care.